All right, everyone. Welcome to... Oh, no. I actually have an IPA, and I actually like it, too. It must have gotten really, really shook up. But today, we are talking about my favorite things at Cedar Point. As of today, I've just released a video about my least favorite things at Cedar Point. So today is a little bit different and a little bit more positive. In that video even, I said that I like Cedar Point. I like everything about it, or a lot of things about it, most things about it. But there are obviously a few things that I think maybe could be a little bit better. Definitely go check out that video if you would like to. But today, I'm talking about my favorite things. We're going to keep it positive. We're going to keep it upbeat. And I want to hear from you guys down below what you think about your favorite things about Cedar Point. What are those things? What brings you back year after year after year? I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. Please leave a comment right now about your favorite things. And let's get into this. Rounding this corner, I always love this view. Now let's start from the very beginning. When you enter Cedar Point, you have a natural barrier that separates you from the real world to Cedar Point. When Walt Disney was planning Disney World, which, like I've said in previous videos, is my first love. When you enter there, they have a fake way to make you go across. You have to go through the lagoon that's gonna take you all the way across, either by ferry or by a monorail system, or you can take a bus. But those are the two classic ways. And you have to do that because Walt Disney wanted it to feel like you had separated yourself from the rest of the world. I can't help but wonder if he had been to island places like Cedar Point or like Blablo Island. I think it's Blablo. Anyway, leave down below if I said it wrong. Also, the dogs, I'm sorry if you're hearing the dogs. The dogs are going crazy. I'm actually at my parents' house right now, babysitting the dogs, or dog-sitting the dogs. Here's one of them right now. Sorry, ADD moment. But this is one of them. The other one, Sadie won't actually let me hold her. She'll only let me pet her, which is very different from at my own house because all she wants to do is sit right next to me. But here, she just wants to play with this one. So, all right. Go play. So anyway, Disney wanted that separation, but I can only imagine that he had probably been to places like Cedar Point and seen the way that they had worked, like taking a ferry to the island, where all of the fun amusement stuff was. But anyway, he wanted that separation. Cedar Point has that. Cedar Point has that just naturally, and it's one of my favorite things about Cedar Point. When you come in, you go to, there's like this little island that the causeway is also connected to, and you round a bend where there's a whole bunch of trees, and you come right around, and you just see Cedar Point just open up in front of you, and it's one of my favorite experiences of Cedar Point. Cedar Point! Cedar Point! Cedar Point! Now, another thing that I love is that anybody can be accepted at any theme park, but especially at Cedar Point. And it's been that way for years, and not just years, even for decades and decades. I mean, theme parks have been a bastion for like the LGBT community for a long time also, just because at those carnival atmospheres, at those atmospheres of amusement, it was a place where you were safe. And it's also been a place, I mean, my growing up Christian youth group would go to Cedar Point. I love it when people come together, regardless of who they are, no matter what, that you can have trans representation, you can have Christian representation, you can have gay representation, you can have all kinds of different people represented, of course, different ethnicities and religions and all kinds of things. There is no sector of person that you can not find at Cedar Point. And I love that about Cedar Point. I love it that people come together there, that they're just, no matter who you are, you can feel accepted and you can have fun at Cedar Point without fear of feeling like you're a lesser than kind of a person than anyone else. And I absolutely love that about Cedar Point and really about most amusement parks, which is probably the reason why I like theme parks so much.
Cedar Point's music's top notch. They got 80s, they got 90s, they got 2000s, they got pop, rock, punk, not mixed together, but it's awesome.
Cedar Point has a fantastic playlist, one of the best. And actually, I've had multiple friends comment on the playlist at Cedar Point. Because they do a great job. They have really fun songs. That does make it kind of difficult to record there from time to time, and I've had more than one video be demonetized because of it, which is why you should go check out my Patreon if you haven't yet. There's all kinds of other videos you can find in polls and all kinds of things you can check out there if you would like to, and if you would like to support the channel. It's not cheap going back and forth to Cedar Point, checking out hotels, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate any amount of support that you guys would like to give. Of course, all the videos are still going to be the same quality and greatness that you come to expect. You know how awesome my sound quality is, stuff like that. Anyway, go check it out if you would like to. Anyway, though, the music playlist is always fun and it adds a lot of atmosphere to Cedar Point. And of course, you need something that's going to kind of keep you going while you are walking those many, many miles around Cedar Point. Hey, she's biting my arm. Because I keep doing this. She thinks I'm playing with her. You stinker.
It's a celebration, you're so glad you're at our joint. So thanks for celebrating with Lusty Lil at Cedar Point.
If you have been around this channel for more than, I don't know, 3 videos, I'm sure you've heard me talk about shows. Because I love shows. I love entertainment. I love all of the many, many details that go into it. And I love singing. I love acting. I love all that kind of stuff. I'm a music teacher today. So because of all that kind of stuff, I'm fascinated by any kind of performance that Cedar Point puts on. From their shows to their parades to their Halloween Sphere areas, like mazes and stuff like that. I love all of those. It's so much fun, and I really am fascinated by the way that I feel anyway that Cedar Point has really stepped up their game in really the last year in particular, but even in the last 2 years, ever since post-pandemic. During the pandemic, during 2020, things were pretty bad as far as entertainment goes. But before that, it was very much high school show choir. And I can't quite put my finger on what makes it so good in the way of like, I don't feel like I could do it. I don't feel like I could put it together in the way that they do that makes it so fantastic. But there's so many layers of people. There's layers of people dancing, there's layers of people singing, there's layers of additional dancers that are kind of like the maybe second tier dancers, but there were just tons, especially on that main stage. And then you have people also doing drums and just all kinds of instrumentation beyond that. You had some brass instruments. Like, it's fascinating. It's so much fun. And for me, as a music teacher and a music lover, I'm watching it and just going, okay, how did they put this together? And what makes it so much more professional looking than what I've seen in the past. So they had this Broadway show a couple years ago, and I'm gonna show a quick clip of it right now.
That's all we've done for the dance. That's the dream of romance. Here's a wizard of whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one we can run. City itself, our mates. We don't wanna have no fuss. The hard knock life is the hard knock life is the hard knock is the hard knock life.
I loved that show. It was amazing. One of my favorites. My daughter loved it. I loved it. But when you compare it to the Come See About Me show that they did this last year in the same space, everything, I look at it and I just go, what did they do that made it so much better? I mean, the costuming looks less cheap. The dancing is incredible, but the dancing was great before too. But again, it's the difference between like a high school kind of a mentality, like more of like a high school show choir, and a I don't know, a professional entertainment show. I don't know how to put my finger on what it is, but there's something about it that I absolutely love. Anyway, it's fantastic, it's amazing, and if you don't go see shows this next year, I'm gonna be mad at you. Go see shows as much as you can. Next is what we all know Cedar Point for, which is some of the best thrills in the industry. Their roller coasters, I mean, I would definitely say that there are some individual coasters across the board, across America, that are better than what Cedar Point has. If I'm gonna go like head to head, coaster to coaster. But if we're gonna go lineup to lineup with any other roller coaster place, it's always better at Cedar Point. Just the lineup in general, you just can't get better than, no matter where you are. It's absolutely incredible, and it's 100% one of the biggest reasons why the majority of people want to come to Cedar Point. It's maybe not the only reason, we'll get to that later, but it is one of the biggest reasons and one of the driving forces behind the popularity of Cedar Point. And I mean, who can complain or argue with that? It's so much fun, and I cannot wait to get back on those coasters again this next year. Actually, speaking of the other reason why Cedar Point is so popular, I didn't even realize these were right next to each other, but it's the beach. The beach at Cedar Point, I mean, that is ultimately the reason why Cedar Point is at all. But beyond that, Cedar Point has this natural resource. We've already talked about the having to go across the water to get to Cedar Point. But beyond that, there's this natural resource that you cannot replicate no matter where you are. Whether you're talking about Disney World or Universal Studios, or you are talking about any other place in this world, regardless of what they have at their disposal. I mean, Disney has so much money and so much stuff that they've put into every one of their resorts, but you cannot replicate the beauty and wonder of what God created. The incredible Lake Erie that you're on, and they have made the water even cleaner, but just having that beach, even if it's not clean, being able to walk up and down that beach, you cannot get that. You can't replicate it in the same way in any other place. And I feel like that is really the thing that sets apart Cedar Point above any other place that you could possibly go. And it's the reason why Cedar Point has an enduring popularity no matter what. Can I island hop across northern Ohio? Speaking of the water, the islands are one of my favorite parts of Cedar Point, even though they're not officially related to Cedar Point. Yes, Cedar Point is on an island peninsula, but it is not actually connected to Put in Bay. It's not actually connected to Kelly's Island, but you can take a ferry and go to those, which is why I think more people need to take more week-long vacations to Cedar Point, because you could easily fill up that time at Cedar Point by taking little jaunts over to the islands on different days, having some rest days, spending time on the beach. There's so much you can do in northern Ohio, and it's all connected to and even kind of centering around the popularity of Cedar Point. So it's absolutely worthwhile to go visit all of those things. I especially recommend Put in Bay. Now, that's more of a young adult thing. That's not so much a family thing. I think you can bring your family, but a lot of places even don't allow kids. There's a lot of, check it out if you would like to, but there are just a lot of rules all the way around. But that place is very, very fun. And it's a really great place just kind of let loose and hang out with some friends. And a place I'm definitely looking forward to going back to again this next year. When I think about different roller coaster theme parks, I don't really think renowned very much. But Cedar Point is one of those places that's definitely renowned. Across the world, people know Cedar Point. They know it because it is the place that is America's roller coaster. It is the North Shore. It is the place that has so much of the thrills because it's broken records so many times. First, we start out with Gemini that broke records, or at least according to Cedar Point, it broke records. It is debatable. And then you have Magnum that broke records and had like 5-hour waits. I mean, this dog, I don't know what to do with this dog. And then you had Millennium Force that broke records, broke the 300-foot record. Only 3 other coasters have broken that record since. Well, I guess 3 other coasters have reached that designation of 300 feet. And then you have Top Thrill Dragster that broke the 400-foot record. I mean, Cedar Point has had this string of successes to be the first to do the thing. And that's even so apparent riding Millennium Force, because Millennium Force, when you compare it to the other 300-foot coasters, it does kind of pale in comparison to Fury 325. It's just not quite as good, but it was made like a decade before, maybe longer than that. So it's just kind of an insane, fun thing that Cedar Point has this world-renowned quality to it that you just can't get at any other park.
Hello.
Now we're gonna get into a few more subjective things for me, but obviously a lot of this is very subjective. The bartenders at Cedar Point are some of my favorites. I can think of 3 offhand that I know their names, and I have run into them at different places throughout the parks. They are so much fun, and again, some of my favorites. So definitely going to find those bars and actually spending time with those bartenders. Make sure you tip well, but they'll reward you for it. And they're so much fun. I love it. Again, why have I not been up here? It's so pretty too. One of those bars exists inside my favorite hotel, even though I didn't actually think it was gonna be my favorite hotel. If you go to my earlier videos of 2022, you'll hear me talking some trash talk about Hotel Breakers. I actually kind of thought that these rooms weren't going to be any nicer than the rooms at Breakers Express. Saying, well, I've seen inside some of the rooms and they're not that great. I think these cheaper hotels might actually be just as good. And maybe they are. Maybe I got a really great room. I've only stayed in one room, but that experience of staying in that room in the rotunda and having this beautiful place is incredible. And I love the hotels of Cedar Point. I love this place. It's not just that hotel. Staying at Breakers Express was a fantastic experience, except it doesn't have an indoor pool, which it really should. Staying at Sawmill Creek was absolutely fantastic. I don't know what I'm doing in a place like this. And a much, much quieter experience. It was a much more adult, enjoyable, quiet time. That's what I'm talking about right there. Rather than having just teenagers everywhere, which you get more at Hotel Breakers.
Pool is not going to be even a fraction of this quiet.
Which, if I was there at peak season, I think that would have sullied my opinion maybe just a little bit. But I was there at the very end, and there were very few teenagers around. Like just sitting in hot tubs and things. Hot tubs weren't even open, so that's why. I guess the indoor one was, but there were no teenagers there on the day that I was there. Staying at Castaway Bay with my daughter and her friends was another red letter experience that was so much fun. I really enjoyed being able to stay there. Now, they had a few things I didn't like quite as much, and overall, I think I would prefer the experience of Kalahari over Castaway Bay, but either way, there's still some great hotels that Cedar Point has. Again, when you look at, maybe you can have some individual things that are gonna be better, but when you look at the overall lineup, I just don't know that you can get as good as Cedar Point has as far as hotels go. I mean, in fact, like when I stayed at Carowinds, there were no hotels except for one that was on the actual property. There was one that was close by where I could walk to things, but you didn't really have a lot of hotel options. Again, also at Kings Island, you don't really have a lot of hotel options. Now, there is the water park, and I love the water park, but honestly, I love it for reasons that probably most people would disagree with. I like the swim up bar. I'm sorry, guys. It's so much fun. I know you call it the piss pool, and I know you say that people never leave there to go to the bathroom, but it's chlorinated. What the hell? I don't care. It's my favorite place. It's so much fun on a really hot day just to be able to cool off in that incredibly cold water. Although not so cold that it's shocking or anything, but it's just so refreshing. You get in there, you get a drink in your hand, and it's a fantastic place just to hang out. You can people watch, you can drink your drink. Love it. Absolutely love it. And you can't convince me otherwise. Cedar Point's commitment to excellence is one of my favorite things about it. They do a great job, and everywhere I look, I see places where they are continuing to improve it. They make it better and better each year, and there's always something a little bit different. And that can only be attributed to my penultimate point, which is the workers. There are some of the best workers at Cedar Point that I think you could possibly have. And even though they're having to be trained every year, and there's a new group every year, they still do a fantastic job. Yes, I've had a couple of bad experiences, but even those experiences have never been one where it's like, I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter to Tony. You know, like, there's never been anything like that. Why? Why would there need to be? My experiences with the workers at Cedar Point have never been anything less than overall stellar. Again, maybe a bad experience or a less than perfect experience from time to time, but even then, I would never characterize them as anything less than good. You know, like, they're good workers. And I appreciate that. I would like to see maybe Cedar Point give them a bit more money. But I mean, I'd always be fighting for a little bit more money no matter how much they pay them. But especially for part-time people, and especially for the ages of the majority of them, it's pretty cool that they do such a fantastic job for Cedar Point. If you're a worker at Cedar Point, shout out to you, and I can't wait to see you in this 2023 season. Every single year, Cedar Point is able to do something a little bit different, and I love that. I love it that there are some new events, there are some different things that happen that are just exciting. There have been, you know, these experiences like the 150th celebration that they did this last year. Of course, different haunted houses that they add or take away. Cedar Point is never done changing, and that's part of the fun of it. Even if they bring back some of the shows that I absolutely loved this last year, it'll be different because there will be new people in them. And I, again, love that. That's part of the fun of entertainment, and that's part of the fun of Cedar Point in general, is there's always something new, always something fun. I'm hoping for maybe some new drink offerings this next year. But of course, we have the new Wild Mouse coaster that I can't wait to ride with my daughter. And we have the new pavilion, this grand pavilion that's 3 stories tall, or at least I'm assuming that's what I saw when they were building it. And it looks beautiful. I can't wait to take advantage of that this next year. So that's part of the fun of Cedar Point. You watch it change, you watch different things happen, and it's worth its weight for me. These are my favorite things. Like I said, I want to hear from you guys down below. I want to hear what your favorite things are. So let me know what you guys think of Cedar Point. What are your favorite things to do? What are your favorite experiences? And like I said before, what brings you back year after year after year after year? If you haven't yet, please press that subscribe button. I'd love to have you guys join this Rollercoaster loving family, and I know like 60% of you guys are not subscribed yet, so come subscribe to this crazy roller coaster family. and share these videos. You know, we have a whole planning series that's coming out very soon. I'm going to be working on that actually this weekend. So stick around for that. Make sure those notifications are on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let's go! I'm editing and I finally caught her. Well, the other dog goes and plays on the floor. Bella.